Greetings from Goblin Valley, Nissedal, Norway. I'm here, so you don't have to be. First of all, thank you to all my patrons on Patreon. Without you, this experiment would not have been possible. I had to buy several of these, and thanks to your generosity, it could be done. And you, my dear patrons, you already know this because I made this video once. And due to the feedback, I decided to make a new one and a shorter one without all my wild speculations. I love to speculate, who doesn't? So we'll keep this shorter, simpler, and just state the facts that I've discovered. Yeah, you see, we are now in my workshop, so sorry for the flickering lights and stuff. It's not made for filming, really. But I had a catastrophic failure in my upcoming DIY box mod video thingy. So this is in the wise getting glued back together. But you know, you never give up when you start something. You follow it all the way through, and then you start over again. It's the only way you can learn the whole process. So yeah, we are going to talk about fitting the 21700 battery in the Pulse, the Wendywape Pulse BF 80 watt box mod. And we are going to talk about this little wire that caused all the problems in the video that will not be public. So yeah, let's just go to close-up and I'll tell you what I did, and then I'll talk about the results. And yeah, let's do that. So again, sorry for the lights down here, but let's just rush through this. This is the 21700 Wape Cell gold wrap battery. And as you can see, there is just no way you can make this fit. The other problem is, of course, it does not fit this way either. So there is actually, to begin with, it looked like a very simple problem. Just take an overhand router and make rid of this 1mm ledge just flat against there and up here, and it would be good to go. I thought it was not that simple. That is due to a lot of things, but these screws, 3 here and 3 here, makes up for a lot of the problems, because you cannot get far enough to the sides to really push the battery this way. So make it fit side to side. That's really not the big issue. The big issue is to sink down the battery into the box. And yeah, this blue sticker covers one of the screws because that's a part of the other thing, changing that little wire I showed you. But let's look at the what I had to do to make the 21700 battery fit. As you can see, I used an overhand router and shaved a bit of this surface. I then went down and shaved a bit along this edge. Then I took off almost a millimeter to the side along all this way, and as you can see, part of this shattered, but where the screws fit, that's still in place, so you can't go more to lateral than I have already done here. So yeah, and I used a Dremel to cut this window bigger to get the battery sunk more into the mod. So it's actually a lot of work, more than I thought of, and that's not all, you see, because you have to sacrifice a magnet too. you have to Dremel or sand the lid. That's no problem really, because the lid is thick enough to shave off a 0.5 millimeter, 1 millimeter. But you have to sacrifice this magnet. So yeah, you can sand it, but this magnet is hard, so a Dremel is better. But when you have done all this and you seriously need an overhand router and you need a Dremel tool, but when you have done that, the 21700 vape cell with the gold wrap fits actually very well, and you don't really need the second magnet. The lid stays in place. Yeah. Yeah, and a big shout out to Rocky Weeks, who just recently published his RSA modification of the Njord. Watch that at Rocky Weeks channel on YouTube. It's really awesome that he not only that he taught me how to do it, but that he now finally has made a video showing you all how to modify it. Yeah. So let's talk about the electronic bit. I will not open the lid. I will not show you how to do this. This is not a tutorial. This is not a how-to on this thing, on this part of this operation, because I think it might be dangerous if you opt for very high voltage in regulated mode. So, or I don't know, I really haven't got a clue on how this chip works, and so far nobody else really know how it works either, that can talk and say something about it. But anyways, this is your negative pole, this is your positive. This is a copper plate, and this wire is soldered to the positive. And look at that little flimsy 20 gauge wire that goes over the bottle like this and down to the board down here. That's for the positive lead, only a 20 gauge wire. Then you have the board, and up here where the 510 is, you have some beefy, short, fat wires that go to the positive and negative of the RDA on top. So from the positive enter the boards here, there happens a lot of electric magic upwards here and then out here. And now, before you start shouting that I'm a big idiot that don't know electricity, I hope only one of those statements is true, by the way. I know, and I knew when I started this, that changing this wire probably wouldn't do anything good. And I talked to people, and yeah, they confirmed that the system, the electronics that the chip uses, really you only need a wire that can carry 4.2 volts. Because you have a I think you have what's called a buck and boost system. Rocky Weeks explained it to me, or he speculated too that has to be the concept here. In no matter how you look at it, when capacitors are involved and probably some MOSFETs and other cool stuff. This wire really doesn't mean nothing. As long as it can carry a current that at 4.2 volts and a current at that voltage. Because it's charging capacitors and the capacitors are discharging, and it happens really fast, as I understand it at least. But anyways, because I never trust theory, I always like to look at what's going on. So I decided to just take this wire out and change it. So, as I said, I won't open this and show you what I did, and I won't explain you how to do it. If you know electricity, you know what I did, and you can replicate it by unscrewing the back panel and get to the electronics. Because, as I said, and I say once again, do not do this at home. I do not recommend this operation. But it's fun to see what a change like this might do. Because my theory is that every part of a system influences the system in one way or another, no matter what theory says. Because yeah, you can see, you can always say that the tiny wire is good enough. Yeah, but I believe that it still had some influence. It just had to. So I changed it for fun, and I had to Dremel out the back panel to make a window here, and I needed to Dremel out a groove in the back lid to make that wire fit, like so. So let's get topside and talk about some harder facts. So let's talk about findings, and I will not in this video that is going public, I will not talk about electricity. You can watch the display and you can take notes before you change anything. You should not change anything, by the way. Warning, don't do this at home. But you should, if you know electricity and this interests you, you take a lot of measurements before you change it. And please, in the commentary, oh, I'm so looking forward to that. When people who know this stuff a lot more than me can chime in and talk about what's going on. Statistics, capacity, yeah. Of course, if you change to a 21700 battery, you increase your capacity with 20%, about-ish. There is always a change in volt drop in bypass mode. So that's a given, okay? If you want that capacity, pick up your router and your Dremel tool and just hack away and make it fit. It will fit. You will sacrifice your one magnet, but it's good now. The lid has never fallen off. And this is a month in the experiment. There is that. Now over to this wire thingy that you should absolutely not do at home. The reason for that is, of course, when you crank up the volts. Let's say you have put on a 0.6 ohm coil and you crank this up to 7 volts. I don't know if the board can handle the current flowing through the modified wire into the board, traveling through the board and up to the top where the big wires in the unmodified is. So all of that, yeah. Differences. At 50 watts with a with different builds, I've tested dual coil, single coils. The difference is about 5%, 5 to 7% in efficiency. I've had to do the statistic data. I've gone through almost 40 bottles. And the statistics show that the difference is 5 to 7% at 50 watts, with only the wire changed. In bypass mode, there is a huge difference. The average, to be conservative, is 20%, sometimes more. Let's say you have a dual coil setup and you vape it casually, not chain vaping. The difference is like 5 milliliters of e-juice versus 7 milliliters of e-juice. I've done that many times now. So with my vaping style and my RDAs, that's the difference between changing the wires. So something is absolutely for sure going on with it. Yeah, you know, in industry, of course, you cut corners to get more profit. And yeah, it sounds eerie familiar. But corners has definitely been cut in order to make this box as affordable as it is now. Overall, do I think for me that these two changes is worth it? Absolutely not. This modified Njord is finding its way back to the squeezer that I modified and put silver 1.5 millimeter thick silver contacts in. So that's going back there. Because I like with the Njord to stay at 70 to 80 watts at least. And then I have better options. If you like to stay at 50 watts, maybe hacking a way to fit the 21700 battery would be okay for you. But steady hands, good router, and yeah. So no, leave it be. But it was a real fun experiment to do, and to figure this out, because in theory, what people have told me, and you know, I've talked to electrical engineers about this buck and boost thingy. You lose efficiency in those systems, depending on settings, of course. So although in theory this shouldn't matter at all, of course in extremes it does, because everything that's a part of the system influences the system in one way or another, to a smaller or bigger degree. Yeah. Let's leave it at that, and you can talk about it in the commentaries. And yeah, that's my conclusion. It can play a big difference, but it's not worth it, and it might be dangerous. So no, don't. Find yourself a better option.